check out our interview with Pro Wrestling Diaries' Andrew Khellah, who discusses his late great best friend, Nelson Frazier Jr., the man behind Big Daddy V. Nelson Frazier Jr., a.k.a. Big Daddy V, King Mabel, Viscera. He is kind enough to join us today. Andrew Khellah of Pro Wrestling Diaries. Sir, how are you?
Hi, Fred. How are you? Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you on, man. And first off, it goes without saying, I'm terribly sorry for your loss. I was talking to you the other day, the night it happened, and I can only imagine what you've been going through these last couple of days. If you can, before we get to the life and times of Nelson Frazier, kind of give us an update on his wife and how his family's holding up.
Yeah, I appreciate the condolence, by the way. Yeah, his wife has been a terrible wreck. I spoke with her. I actually got a text from one of my friends, Nick, and he said, your friend Nelson died. So I was like, what? And then I was driving home, and it's snowy here in Jersey, so I'm like a block away from my house, and my hand starts to shake, and I'm pulling over, and then immediately I call his cell phone, thinking, because, you hear a lot of hoax, Ultimate Warrior died, this guy died, that guy died, right?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, it could be a hoax or something. It could be, internet rumors, So I call Nelson's cell, and his wife picks up, and she's crying as she picked up. As soon as she picked up, that's when I knew, and my heart just sank. And, I was just talking to her, and I was like, I'm so sorry for your loss and everything, and she's telling me he had a massive heart attack, and it's just an unfortunate situation because he was more heavily involved in the movies, and a lot of people, I'm not sure if they know this, but he was involved in movies, and he was doing a lot of indie shows. The one that you saw him at, and you interviewed him as well. He was doing great, and he wanted to make another run. And I remember he kept saying over and over, he's a WWE guy forever, and I've always told him, we joked around on the phone, and I kept telling him, I'm like, man, I wish I want to see you back in the WWE. I told, personally, I loved it during the Attitude Era. A lot of people have, he was in the ministry, he was as Big Viscera, then the world's largest love machine, But back to, how his family's holding up, it's just as good as you could imagine, She's right now, I think she's doing the funeral arrangements, things like that, and I was going to mention later on, but I'll mention it later on, but go ahead.
No, if you want, we can mention it right now as far as funeral arrangements go.
Right. Well, I was going to, when I have more information on it, she doesn't have a PayPal, and she she needs help from all the fans or people who that could help or donate, even if it's $5, $10, anything that somebody could afford, they could pass to her. It would add up. It would really help, and it would help her and her family tremendously. So I'm just asking anybody out there if they could help. If anybody's ever a fan of him, whether you love him, whether you hate him, you're entertained by him, if you could help his family, that's something that be good on your conscience, and just something you could do for a guy that's entertained us all these years.
Of course. And is there any information as far as how to donate as of right now?
Well, currently right now, as I'm speaking, no, because his wife is going to get a P.O. box, and that way, she's asked me to see about collecting funds and trying to organize something, but I just want to put everybody else at ease. They don't have to send me the money; they could send directly to her. If they want to send it to me, that's fine, and they could also email her simultaneously and say, "Hey, I sent so and so to this PayPal address." They could do that. Or they could just contact her directly. Her Facebook is Cassandra Frazier. She's one of my friends on Facebook, and you guys could look her up if you look on my friends list, or even I think if you have her as well, Fred. You know Nelson. I mean, if they see her, Cassandra Frazier, if they want to send her a MoneyGram or a money order or something, or a check, and as soon as we have the P.O. box, we can arrange and do something for her, because it's something we gotta help. Even if it's just something, a few dollars from everybody, if we could pull together and help her and help her family. So.
And I understand you actually recently spent some time with Nelson, right? You spent some time on his 43rd birthday, February 14th?
Oh, no, I didn't spend time with him. I spoke with him.
Okay.
it's funny because his birthday is February 14th, as you mentioned, it's Valentine's Day. So we joked. So that's the last time I spoke with him. We joked that, his Valentine's Day has always been his birthday. And when he was in the WWE during his run as the world's largest love machine, he was kissing Trish Stratus. You remember that?
Yes,
and singing
I do.
to Lillian Garcia. When he was singing to Lillian Garcia and kissing Trish Stratus, and he had the great gimmick with wearing the robe and the pajamas and everything. They never acknowledged the fact that his birthday fell on February 14th. I mean, it's not something major that they could have, revelated to the world, but I mean, it's something that could have been a nice, fun tidbit they could have played around with or something like that. And, that we were just laughing about that, and I told him, the next time you come into town, if you come to New York or Jersey or something, let me know. And he's like, yeah, we'll get sushi, we'll talk and everything. So even after our many signings and we did our shoot project, and we still maintain a friendship, on a personal level. Sometimes I would talk to him. It would feel like it's 20 minutes. I hang up my phone, I look at how much time it was on the phone, and it was an hour and a half, but we're mostly talking about life. And I just want to say, a lot of people don't know this, but he's a very intelligent man. He knows about just different things, about it, the moon and astronomy, and the story behind all his tattoos. I don't know if you see all the tattoos on his body, and and he explained what each represented, and it's just I think a lot of people, because they saw him on TV, they don't know the real person behind. But I think if they spent time with him and they knew what he thought about life and his take on things, you would find a pretty amazing personality behind all of that.
And I saw TMZ, they had a post today about a follow-up story on Nelson's tragic death, and it mentioned that he had lost over 100 pounds in recent months, which is, that's a hell of a lot of weight. How was he holding up physically the last time you talked to him?
The last time I talked to him physically, he felt great. I asked him, how are you doing? How's the wife? How's the family doing? How's everything? He asked me how my family's doing, and we were talking, and he said, I'm doing great. I feel great, and he mentioned that, I think he mentioned it one time. I remember he said he lost weight, and I saw the pictures, fans would post pictures of him, and he had his hair dyed blonde, and he had the goatee, and I was like, hey, he looks great. That's good for him. And another thing that a lot of people don't know, he's a very well, he loves the fans so much that he made sure that he always looked his best. He did not come to conventions and signings in a T-shirt. And I'm not knocking guys who have, it's fun, but he took so much pride into his wardrobe and how he looked good because he wanted the fans to have the best photo op possibly. He used to dress up with the suits. A lot of people have pictures. I've seen different fans have pictures of it. So, I mean, it's cool to see that. And he always used to say, he goes, oh, you dressed to impress. That's something it's stuck in my head even when I'm working now. And I always hear that in my head from him. He goes, dressed to impress.
And how did you guys actually meet? I know you interviewed him. And that interview almost fell through a few years ago. How ironic. And then you guys just ended up becoming best friends. I mean, so many people have interviewed this guy before, particularly in shoot interviews. What made you two really hit it off and connect?
Well, I met him at the end of 2008 is when I started Pro Wrestling Diary, and my main emphasis at the time for the company was to produce shoot interviews and do a different style. So I wanted to get guys that have never done shoots before. And I'm thinking on top of my head, I'm like, this is a guy who's been in 3 different eras in professional wrestling. He was in the New Generation in 1993 on. He was involved in the Attitude Era, and then he was even with the new school of guys in the 21st century. It's been the 2000 years, 2000, 2005, those years. So I mean, there's a guy right there that has been through 3 different locker rooms, been interacting with so many guys, worked with and against Undertaker and top guys like that. So it's that's an interesting guy to interview, and he's turned down a lot of interviews before. But we talked a lot before he did the interview. When I talked to him, we started hitting it off because he saw that I was an old school fan, and he was laughing because I was trashing the new school stuff at the time. This one had the dress code and things like that going on in WWE, and that one had the brand split when Raw and SmackDown were split. So I just hated the product at the time and everything, even though I still loved wrestling. So anyhow, Nelson was laughing at how direct I was, and he was like, "Oh, we're cut from the same cloth," and he would say little expressions like that. He goes, my Egyptian brother from a different mother," and things like that. So, so when I'm glad you brought that up. It actually never happened, the shoot interview, because it's my fault at the time. Like I had some little immaturity. I should have not pushed the little things about the terms and like how much and things like that. But we worked it out and everything, and like I was wrong, and I apologized to him, and I respect him so much more because he didn't hold it against me. And as a matter of fact, he said, when you meet me, you're gonna see like how I am, and you're gonna like me. You're gonna see. So when I met him and we started hitting it off, and when I drove him back to the airport after that weekend was up, and he goes, and I'm like, man, I'm gonna miss you. Actually, we had fun this weekend, because he came to my house. We did a private signing. He signed things. We did the shoot interview. He went to do his. He did a convention that weekend. I paid for his flight, and the vendor, we worked something out. That's how I got his number, because the vendor booked him for that show, and I had him for the shoot. So that's how it all originated from. And I remember it was such a great shoot because in the beginning of the shoot, I remember I was so nervous sitting in the chair because I've never been like in front of a camera, especially in the presence of a superstar that you see on TV all this time. And now you have a 500-pound mega star that's from all these eras of wrestling that you've been watching all these years. So I remember he goes, what are you so nervous for? And like we have it on the tape, but we edit that. But he goes, what are you so nervous for? And I'm like, oh, this is my first shoot. So he goes, so am I. This is my first shoot. So it was funny. We shared a common. It was his first shoot interview, and it was actually my first shoot interview. So, and he goes, oh, you're popping your cherry tonight, Andrew. You're gonna make a shoot interview. We're making history tonight, brother. This is history. Turn that camera on. This is history. Like he was so funny, and had such a great personality and great sense of humor. I'm really gonna miss the guy. Like it's still surreal to me, and I wish God have mercy on his soul, and
Definitely seems like a great guy. I mean, the reaction throughout the business from people that had the pleasure of working with him, from Shane Helms to Tommy Dreamer to Gene Snitsky, Chris Masters. I mean, so many guys have absolutely nothing bad to say about him. And I think, and I know, there were times like in his career where people said, oh, well, he's got a rough style and all that stuff like that. But it definitely seems like he got along with the boys, and not just, some of the boys, but I mean, a lot of the vets as well. Right.
And he's talked so highly. I don't know if these guys know this. They probably do. They've been friends with him all this time. But he's talked so highly of the boogeyman, Marty Wright. He actually introduced me to Marty. I did like one booking with him and a couple privates, and I brought him to some shows and things like that. We still keep in touch, and just so many things. And actually, he was instrumental. I was going to do a shoot interview with Umaga after he was released in the summer. I think it was in 2009. I think he was released from WWE, and he's good friends with Umaga. But so we tried to make it happen, everything. And then one time Nelson called me, and he was like crying on the phone, and he's telling me like Umaga died. And I remember this in December. I think it was December 4, because it was 2 days before my birthday at the time when he called me. And I said, oh man, and he died. And I think Umaga has 5 kids, and it's such a sad story. And they were great friends, and he talked highly of Umaga, Shelton Benjamin, Matt Stryker, Bret Hart. There were so many guys that he said no, and the thing about it is he never had a bad thing to say about like anybody really. But he always even if they didn't like him, or they say he worked a rough style, this and that. And I agree, he did work a rough style, and it's part of the business, as he says, it could be rough, when you're big, things can happen in the ring, but yeah.
Yeah, and with Viscera, something I've seen here. And when you helped get me that interview with him, it was a couple-minute interview, but he was a really nice guy back in, I think, February 2012. That interview, right, like initially, I think got like 80,000 views. And at the time, before we had our rapid growth here in the Sports Courier, I was just like, wow, like Viscera. Like I've interviewed guys like Mick Foley, Booker T, Edge. Like those interviews don't even come close to this guy. And granted, maybe people were just wondering, what the hell he was up to back in 2012. But I think that speaks volumes to how characters were perceived back in the 90s, and back in the 80s. Like a guy like Viscera may not have necessarily been everybody's favorite wrestler, but there's that old saying, there's always a fan of somebody. And that guy had a lot of fans. And I guess just as it relates to this current state of pro wrestling, why do you think guys, besides the obvious, his size, his look, and everything, why do you think guys like Viscera tend to, stand out in the 90s and 80s, whereas nowadays, say, God forbid a guy like Kofi Kingston gets released, maybe people won't have that same kind of, affection or affinity for him?
Right. You see, it goes back to this. The 80s and 90s, it was a big man's world, right? Like these nowadays, like the crop of guys have changed. But I think the guy like Viscera could get over in any era because he has the size. But he didn't just have the size; he had the presence, he had the look, and he could, if given the chance, and he has cut some promos, but if he's done it a lot more, like you've seen other guys given the chance to cut promo week after week, the guy can turn it on. And I'll give you an example. Even on our shoot, he mentioned that time when he sang to Lillian Garcia, like, I can't get enough of your love.
Oh, I remember that.
They wanted him to sing about cheeseburgers. The script, the writers wrote some garbage for him they wanted to embarrass him and make a mockery of it and make a joke out of it. But he flipped it on him on live TV and just started singing to her, and and it was just something that was totally unexpected. And he's able to have that mindset to change things on the dime on live TV. It's just his poise and composure. The other thing about him is he's not like he's a great worker for a big guy because he likes to work with the smaller guys. I've asked him, like just personally, but as a fan asking, hey, Nelson, like, who do you like? What kind of guys do you like to work with? He goes, I love to work with a guy like Rey Mysterio that I could throw around. Or and he was like, when he was in ECW and had Striker as his manager, when he worked a pay-per-view match with CM Punk, he goes, I loved working with Punk because the guy had great psychology in the ring, and he just was a great wrestler, and there was fans. He was so over, fans were behind him. It made me more of a monster. It put me more over as a heel. So the guys like that, he loved working with the smaller guys. He liked working with other big guys, and he could work different styles. He could work big with the big guys, and he could work towards the smaller guys as well. A lot of big guys can't do that, and we've seen it. We've seen a bunch of big fails. I'm not going to mention. We've seen in wrestling a lot of big guys. They don't have the longevity. The guy, if he really was terrible, like if some fans would say, they would not bring him back over and over, and he wouldn't have all these different runs and different characters that we all know. So to each his own.
I agree. Yeah, to each his own.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, did he ever speak to you about his weight at all? Because he did lose a lot of weight, and that's one of the things. I mean, his size, his height. I mean, he was 6'8", 6'9" in his prime. Nearly 500 pounds. I mean, that's what made him, so appealing to people. In addition to the fact that he had charisma, he could talk, he could move around in the ring. I mean, did he ever have any kind of pressure or a double-edged sword to deal with in WWE as far as granted, maybe he should have lost some weight. Maybe his employers wanted him to lose some weight, but at the same time, it's that size that brought him to the dance in the first place and got him over.
Exactly. Well, he never mentioned to me that nobody in WWE ever pressured him to lose weight. I'm not sure if that's the case or not. I don't know. I didn't hear any conversations to confirm or to say yes or no, it didn't happen. But I'll share a funny story. He did mention, I don't know if he said this in the shoot, but he did say it off camera, and I'll share it. He mentioned that Vince wanted him initially, when he had the Big Daddy V character, he wanted to have him wear just the bottom tights, and it would almost look like a sumo wrestler. And and Nelson pushed it. He goes, "Come on, Vince, can you?" That's how he had the suspenders with the pants, and it went up to above his stomach or chest, I believe. You remember how the look was?
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
Right, yeah. So that was just a funny thing. Vince actually wanted to have him in this short spandex looking tights, as like a traditional looking wrestler, how they looked, you know, and he was like, come on, let's try to, you know, work it this way or that, you know. But I think he did mention it in the shoot, and there's a lot of other great stuff that he mentioned in there, and also like in other interviews. I remember, you know, and it's just, yeah.
Yeah, and you actually told me a story off the air, which I hope you don't mind sharing on the air, about how you actually were in the hotel room when he reunited with all of the men on the mission. Can you tell us about that? If that's all right?
I don't mind telling. Yeah, I don't think you would. I was in the room like he was signing the DVD covers. I went there just to see him, and actually, Mo and Oscar came inside his room like while after he was signing, and I was hanging out. I was gonna leave just so they could, you know, I'll leave them, you know, to be with each other. And also like, oh, hang out for a little bit, just relax, you know, whatever. So I'm hanging out in the room with him and Mo and Oscar, the all three members of the Men on a Mission, and it was like hug fest, and they haven't seen each other in a long time, or you know, it was. I don't know if they've talked on the phone or, you know, they've been in touch, but I know that they haven't seen each other at that point. I think this was end of 2009. They haven't seen each other for many, many, many years. And we actually discussed making a project, like a Men on a Mission, like a round table, having the three of them in a shoot together because they could talk about stories and play off each other. I don't even have to interview them or ask them questions. I could just throw in one thing and they could just talk about it and things. So, I mean, it was good and I was there all night long. It was like almost to the wee hours of the early morning. I drove from Philadelphia, like 2 hours back home into Jersey. And I was so tired, but I was like, man, I was actually in the room, like, witnessing the reunion. I was watching, like, it's like you're watching it all like a movie, but it's real life, and it's not a TV, and it is real. And you see the real emotion, how much they cared about each other, and it was something nice to witness, and I had the pleasure to see that.
Would you say that that's your favorite Nelson Frazier memory as far as you being his friend?
Yes, that, and just like the way, like his sense of humor would be, like he would laugh, and he had that deep laugh. He had that deep voice and that deep laugh, and it was just. I could still hear him like when he's laughing. It's just funny. He's just a great guy. Like so many great memories, but the one that sticks out, I would say that one is a favorite memory. I would say that, or like I remember a kid at a show at an autograph signing. I was standing behind him, and the guy was dressed up as the world's largest slot machine in baggy pajamas, and he had a mohawk, like a blonde mohawk, and he like as if he wanted to be the world's largest slot machine. Oh my goodness, there was just good times.
Yeah, I remember when I interviewed him, he was so friendly, and I met him, and he's like, man, a friend of Andrew's is a friend of mine. And he shook my hand, and my whole body shook, and I'm like, man, this guy's definitely.
And you were standing there. You saw me, and you said, "Hey, are you here?" Like I think it was like for my friend Richie. They're running an indie show there that night. Him and they're promoting. He was in some kind of match. I forgot. I think it was. I didn't stay for the card, but I just stayed for the signing and drop off DVDs and some stuff that he wanted to sell and sign for people. But I was there, and I remember I was surprised when I saw you there, and you're like, oh hey man, and you're like, oh I would be nice if I could get interviewed. And I said, you want to? He's right here, and you saw how easy going he was. See, the problem is, if you don't know him, you're looking at him, he looks intimidating to approach because he's such a big guy, but the guy had his heart was like a teddy bear, you know, like he was such a good-hearted guy. Like he didn't have a mean bone in his body. He didn't try to hurt nobody intentionally. You know what I mean? Like if he did hurt somebody, I'm sure it probably wasn't, you know, on purpose, it's accidental, but I mean, yeah, that's something, you know, for people to know about him. He really was a good-hearted person, and he loved the fans a lot, and he always told me, every time I talked to him, no matter what, and I talked to him so many times over the years, over the phone, in person, even I tell him, like, oh, did you ever go to TNA? Would you ever go here? He goes, Andrew, I'm a WWE guy. I'm a WWE guy forever. So, and he even said, not that I have nothing against Jeff Jarrett or guys in TNA. He he loved the wrestlers bit, but he said over and over, I'm a WWE guy. He always said that. I'm a WWE guy.
And did he ever explain to you why he took that sabbatical in the early 2000s? Like, I don't know if you remember, like, he got released, I think, in, like, 2000 from WWE, and we didn't see him for a few years. Like, he made, like, a brief appearance in TNA and on the Indies, and then he came back in 2004 and ended up actually staying for 4 years, much to the surprise of a lot of people. He kind of had yet another, I think, like a third career rebirth. It was pretty awesome. Did he ever explain to you why he took that break?
I think he was burned out at the time. I remember he said something that he was traveling a lot, and just his body was getting broken down and tired at the time, and he just needed to recharge his batteries. That's what he told me. But I've heard other rumors, and I've asked him about these crazy rumors, like, oh, did he get fired, whatever. And actually, it was something mutual. He told me like that he wanted to take time off, and they granted him the time off. But he always had a good relationship with WWE. They brought him back. He saw how many times they brought him back. He never left on bad terms with them. So that's why he always came back, because of the good terms and good relationship with the office.
Well, Andrew, I really do appreciate the time, man. Before I get you out of here, what is your favorite Nelson Frazier Jr. moment of him as a pro wrestler?
As a pro wrestler, I would say favorite moment when we won King of the Ring in '95 in Philadelphia, and the crowd was just like ruckus. And even myself at the time, I was like, I hated him because like Savio Vega wrestled 4 times and he couldn't get it done, and he like broke Razor's ribs, in the storyline and everything. But I'd say him winning King of the Ring. And another favorite moment was when he was in the Ministry with The Undertaker and those guys during the Attitude Era. And he even said, I asked him, what is your favorite moment? And he said, you'd be surprised. It was King of the Ring was not number 1, but it was up there. He said it was top 3. I said, if you could pick the number 1 moment that you could tell your kids and grandkids for forever, like hypothetically, what would be the number 1 moment out of all the 3 moments, King of the Ring or the other ones? He said the Attitude Era was the best time, about that locker room, the camaraderie, the fact that they were in a war with Nitro and WCW at the time. The money was pouring in like crazy. There were sellouts everywhere they went. Austin and Rock were hot. Just everything, DX, Taker, Mick Foley, everything that was going on, they were just going strong. And that was his favorite. That he told me, that I remember, that he said that his favorite time was the Attitude Era and King of the Ring, and like a few things, wrestling. I think he had some great matches he liked with. I'm trying to remember.
I know he wrestled like Undertaker a few times. I know he wrestled Undertaker.
Yeah,
wrestled
that's what
Foley,
I was going to say.
like
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, he loved wrestling Undertaker. He put over Undertaker big. That he was such a great guy. Like, he was a locker room leader. It didn't matter how big or small you were on the card. Undertaker went up to each guy, and he was like a leader. He treated everybody like equals. So he liked Undertaker a lot. He liked Shelton Benjamin, I mentioned. Boogeyman, Marty Wright, Matt Stryker, a lot of the talent he mentioned. But those offhand I remember because he had great recollections of those guys. Umaga, those guys.
Well, Andrew, again, I really do appreciate the time. I know it's a very difficult time for you right now. My deepest condolences to you and your loved ones. My deepest condolences to Mr. Frazier's loved ones. Just a class act, a guy that was well-liked by just about everybody in the wrestling business. Gone way too soon. Actually, I lied. I'm going to ask you one more question here. For fans watching this right now, what's one thing that you should leave them with about Nelson Frazier Jr.?
Nelson was a great-hearted guy, as I said, very passionate, and he loved the fans. He loved the business so much. He loved working. He loved working as a heel. He loved working as a babyface. I asked him which he liked better. He said, "I liked them both. Depend on the situation and who he worked with." But he loved. He loved the business so much, and he loved the fans. He always had a smile on his face when he go take a picture with somebody, he stood up if he could. He always like signed, personalized, whatever people want. Like, he was very approachable. He'd look you in the eye, and he loved his wife so much because he would always talk about her. He would send me Christmas cards, him and his wife. He would send to the wrestlers and to other people that he knew very closely. So I would get Christmas cards with him and his wife, and he would call me. A couple times he called me on my birthday, things like that. Like, he's such a good guy. Really, really, really a good guy. And if he liked you a lot, you were in. But if you crossed him and you didn't do the right thing, he would still, he's not one of the guys that like will hold it against you. He'll almost like forgive and forget, Yeah. And the last thing I want to say before you let me out of here, if once again, if anybody could help his family, help his wife. Her name is Cassandra Frazier. She's on Facebook, Cassandra Frazier. And if a lot of you are friends with Nelson Frazier on his Facebook page, you could see her on his friend page. You could see her on my friend page. You could see her on a lot of people's friend page. You look up Cassandra Frazier, you'll see her. And if anybody could help her, any type of donation or something that you could help with for her and her family, with the funeral costs and things like that, that would be much appreciated to her and her family. And I think something that he would appreciate himself, Nelson, looking down on everybody, like, gave so much to the business, and I think he would really appreciate everybody, like, to help his family in this time of need.
Well, I definitely wouldn't be surprised if many fans follow suit. Andrew, if you get any more information on that as well, as far as anything PayPal-wise or any kind of links, please feel free to pass them along to me. We'll be more than happy to share that information with all our subscribers.
I sure will, and thank you so much for giving me the forum to talk about him. And it's like such a it's like cathartic to get it out and to share some like tidbits of stories about him, and also like to allow me to talk about for his family and to his wife for them to be helped. So I really appreciate that as well.
Hey, likewise, my friend. Hopefully I'll get to talk to you next time under better, more positive circumstances.
Yeah.
But he definitely left a positive impact on you. Definitely left a positive impact on this fan and many fans worldwide. Rest in peace.